Good day and welcome to another podcast for Talking Irish. Today we're going to kind of take things from a different perspective. We've got a guest here today, and James Scott is a longtime Notre Dame fan, but he's also a young Notre Dame fan. And we're going to get his perspective from somebody who has been suffering the pains of mediocrity as someone who has never seen the greatness. They've heard about it, they've dreamed about it, but never have been here. A lot of Irish fans have suffered, and their suffering is because they know how great Notre Dame used to be firsthand, where James is kind of coming. This is definitely uncharted territory. Thanks for coming in today, James. How did you become a Notre Dame fan?
I was sort of born into it in a way. My parents, both big Notre Dame fans. My mom went to St. Mary's. My grandfather thinks he went to Notre Dame, and my uncle also went to Notre Dame, and my sister as well. So it's been a sort of long family tradition. Every Saturday, everyone in the family is always gathered around the TV. So I just grew up with it. But also, I did get to see a little bit of the tail end of the glory with a lot of the pro players. I was a Chiefs fan growing up, so when I was, about that age where you really get invested in football, I got to see Joe Montana play for the Chiefs. Though he didn't achieve as much, glory as he did in San Francisco, it was still good to see nonetheless.
Okay, so you've never been a fan of another team, or you don't remember a time that you were a fan of the Sooners or Syracuse or anything like that?
No. I did like Bobby Bowden for a little bit,
okay.
But that was only when I was really, really little. But yeah, I was always been a Notre Dame fan.
What's your first memory of being a Notre Dame fan, whether that was watching a game or hearing something or getting a hat or something? What's your first memory of being an Irish fan?
It would probably be my grandpa had a good friend, Bill McGraw, who they always watched every Notre Dame game together, even though Bill McGraw was not a Notre Dame fan. And okay. I remember they just had this animosity that would go on for years just between the two, where he would root for anyone but Notre Dame and just drive my grandpa crazy. And I remember just that experience of that sort of rivalry. I remember that sticking out in particular, just throughout the holidays, and whenever we visit my grandpa, they'd always be there bickering about who should be rated what, and it just was a fond memory.
Did you ever feel, or do you feel cheated in a way, or do you feel like you're missing something in the sense of hearing all this, knowing, especially nowadays where you can go back and watch tons of video and articles and things of that nature? Did you ever feel like you got shortchanged when you were younger, even up until recently, of not seeing the glory?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, technically I was alive when they won their last championship, but I was about 3 months old, so I definitely wish I got to see all those games live. Got to see Joe Montana's glory, see the great defenses we had, and I guess it's kind of, I've been used to the fact that they've been sort of mediocre. I don't, like, even now I don't know how to handle them doing so well. I keep looking to basketball season like I used to every year, but
and that's delayed a little bit maybe now.
Yeah.
Do you remember like the first team or first couple players that you were fans of? Obviously, maybe young kids today are going to look at obviously Manti and Golson and things like that. Do you remember players early in your life that you remember that that's a great Notre Dame player?
I would have to say the thing that sticks out most for me was the first trip I made down to Notre Dame to see them play USC. And I think that, I was always a Notre Dame fan growing up, but that was the moment where it really solidified, because, that was a 21-point comeback in that game, and seeing Jarius Jackson just, tear down the field and just march back, and that last-second goal line dive, it's just, I remember him in particular being that sort of the person that got me more interested in college football than pro football, that made it just really college football to be the sport I was most interested in. Just that explosiveness, that high energy, and so I'd say he would probably be the one that sticks out most to me.
Okay. As this season went on, obviously you've not you don't remember an undefeated season, or obviously in your lifetime you've seen some BCS bowl appearances, but all losses. As the season progressed, when did it really hit you, looking back, because you didn't even know it then, when did you think that, oh my God, this could be, and there's been years, and you've lived the talk of return to glory. That's probably been your generation's mantra, not so much national championships and Heisman Trophy winners and All-Americans, but the return to glory. And it seems we've been duped on that several times over the years. That always seems to be the cheer. What game or what point of the season did you say, oh my God, this is really happening?
Well, actually, before the season started, I thought there was a slim chance we could get into the BCS. Just because I thought, with the schedule we had, the way it looked before the season started, 2 losses finishing the season, if we could manage that, I thought, hey, we might, squeak in. The SEC may just all beat each other, and but I at no point did I think undefeated was a possibility until, probably till the end of the USC game. Okay. It was just so foreign to me. I just kept waiting, and it wasn't the big games I was worried about. I felt like I think we could get it done Michigan State. I thought we could get it done with Oklahoma, but I worried about Pittsburgh. I worried about BYU. The games that always get us. Boston College, even. Every year it seemed those were the games that trip us up. We'd fall for the trap games.
Well, you do sound like an old jaded Notre Dame fan. I think you fit in well in that, and I think that may be the family, because I think every year I'd go and listen to young fans. Oh, we're going to be the best this year, and I'm sitting there going, no, we're not. So I think you've got that Notre Dame jaded attitude, which will serve you well in the future. What would you say if they go into Miami and lose? 12-0 is a good season. If years ago Notre Dame was a self-ban on bowls, didn't go, which was obviously changed by themselves. But would you consider this a successful season based on the fact that they would finish 12-1? Could you live with that?
I definitely could live with it. I lived with much worse. So
true.
I would have to say is if we look competitive, that's the thing for me. Because I think as far as recruiting goes, I think people will still want to write off Notre Dame unless they look like they can handle an SEC team.
Okay.
So as long as we look like we belong there, that's to me the big point. As long as we're not getting destroyed at the line of scrimmage, looks like we can that our defensive line is everything that we say it is. That Manti Te'o plays the way that he's expected to. Then I think I would say definitely it's a successful season. But I think regardless, undefeated is that's something to be proud of. And Alabama's a heck of an opponent, so getting stomped by them puts you in good company.
Sure.
But I think, if I had to say I had a prediction, I think we'll do a lot better than people think we will.
Okay. A lot of people have felt that this team is ahead of schedule in its so-called return to glory, that next year was going to be the year, give Everett Golson a year to actually have game experience, a young defensive line, Nix and Tuitt would all be back, and again, a lot of guys with eligibility, i.e. Fox and Calabrese, would probably be back. Outside shots of guys like Martin and Wood and even Eifert got a year, but let's count him out. Moving forward as a young Notre Dame fan who now has, even no matter what happens in the championship game, witnessed the real first step of the return to glory, what will be your expectations moving forward?
That's difficult because it depends a lot on how the Big Ten shapes up, and because we have a lot of Big Ten opponents and they've looked very subpar, and I think that's always been our issue, is that we're, in a weird way, we've kind of, even though we're connected to the ACC, now, it seems that the Big Ten's always kind of been our bread and butter for ranked opponents. So I think that could be a hindrance to us if we don't play enough good ranked teams going forward. But I say my expectations are, relatively high. Even next year, if we have a couple losses, I wouldn't be too disappointed. We'd be losing Manti Te'o, which is, a huge loss. But I think what's more important is that we have room for growth. Those guys on the defensive line can only get better. And I think also this season, if anything else, has given us a huge step in recruiting. And I think just that us being, the talk before the season started is Notre Dame relevant? And I think that's completely off the table now. So for me, that's good enough.
Okay. You bring up the Big Ten, and obviously Notre Dame, with the exception of football, fencing, and hockey, have joined the ACC. In today's world of seemingly mega conferences, and especially with the BCS dissolving and playoffs coming, there's a lot of things in the mix in terms of pros and cons of being part of a conference. As a fan who is very familiar with conference realigning and these mega conferences coming up, they seem to be in the media quite a bit. What are your thoughts in terms of the Irish, whose tradition has been to be independent even through tough times? What are your thoughts about them either staying independent or joining a conference?
I'm 100% for staying independent. One, on just the financial level, completely makes sense for the university. Why would you ever give up a TV deal where you're on, every week regardless? And just the money for bowls as well. And it's a huge draw for kids, for recruits, that you get to make your own schedule, that you get to choose the opponents you want, you get to be on TV every week, and it helps maintain that tradition a little better, I think. And I don't mind us being connected with the ACC, but I wouldn't want us to be in the ACC entirely at the same time. I think that's a conference that I think you almost guaranteed have to go undefeated to make it to a BCS game. So I'm not a big fan of the conferences in the sense that we have a huge advantage by being independent, and I wouldn't want to give it up being a Notre Dame fan, but okay. I understand why everybody else hates it.
Sure. That's okay. It's good to be the underdog and hate it sometimes. You probably have a lot of friends that may or may not be college football fans or Notre Dame fans. Do you see people jumping on the bandwagon, if you will, or on either side, either jumping on the bandwagon to say, yep, I'm Catholic, I'm Irish, or I used to like them and I didn't really follow them, but now I will because they're undefeated, or even on the opposite side of jumping on the Notre Dame bandwagon in terms of haters? Oh, see, they're not in a conference. They haven't beaten any great teams. They're lucky. They got lucky against Stanford, that kind of thing. Have you seen any, again, with maybe younger fans, in terms of people jumping on either bandwagon?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, Notre Dame is that sort of polarizing team, that you either love them or you hate them, and the more talk that there is about them, it's just going to draw that out more from people. But yeah, I have noticed that, I have a lot of friends from down south who, are just hating on them entirely right now, saying, a huge blowout against Alabama, but yeah, I haven't seen too many people actually jump on the bandwagon for Notre Dame in favor, which I kind of expected a lot of. But, I think that comes with, I think they have to win it before the bandwagon really starts, because I think people are still skeptical.
Obviously, a win would help solidify Notre Dame's claim to being the best team this year. Real briefly, in terms of the one thing you also haven't really seen in person is a Heisman Trophy winner, where Notre Dame already has 7 to lead any college program in the country of all time. What would it mean, or what do you think the significance is to you in terms of Manti Te'o winning the Heisman Trophy this upcoming Saturday?
Well, I think it's got, one, I think it'd be a huge significance in the sense that a defensive player can actually win the Heisman, which has been something that's always kind of bothered me quite a bit, because so many years I've felt like they always stretch to put whoever the top quarterback is in. And, I've thought many times maybe a running back or a defensive player's deserved it. So in that sense, I think it's, it'd be great for just the league in general. But I think it'd be just great for the league with the character Manti Te'o shows.
Of course.
He's, 4 years of consistency, of just being a great athlete and a great student athlete. And I think that is what really the Heisman stands for, or at least should stand for. And I think it's kind of maybe I'm being old-fashioned in a sense, but a step in the wrong direction to be, throwing it always to just the top running quarterback in the league, statistically.
Okay. Do you, if you had a choice between an undefeated regular season, one-loss regular season winning the national championship, or a Heisman Trophy winner on your team? Which one do you pick?
I'd take the championship.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not something I've experienced yet, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm hopeful, but yeah, I'd definitely take the championship.
Okay. Lastly, what is your prediction for this game? It's a long ways off. There'll be a lot of potential for ups and downs in terms of storylines, but overall, what's your prediction for this game?
Well, I think we got a lot of things on our side. I think people are overlooking us a bit, and Alabama plays an ugly game. It's a bruiser type game, and if we've shown one thing this season is we win the ugly ones. And I think that every time you see a championship team, you always look back at their season and you think, God, that was ugly. So, hey, we've got that going for us. I honestly think Notre Dame, if it's a close game, if we can slow down the run a little bit, which I think is just what it comes down to, because if we can make them rely on the pass, I think we've got them. But, geez, who knows? We've gone up against some good offensive linemen, but Chance Warmack,
yes.
He's something else.
Yeah, Louis Nix even commented that before Saturday's game, when they were talking about the two different teams, he almost kind of liked to have the chance to go up against them, which I think says a lot for Louis. Well, thank you, James, for coming on, and hopefully we'll be talking again. And after the game, hopefully we'll be talking about what it feels like to have won a national championship in your lifetime.
Let's hope so.
And thank you for listening. And as always, go Irish.